Jesus ran it before me, and he is on my side. I have everything that I need. If you listen close, you'll hear heaven cheering for me. Come on, come on, children of God, be who you are. Come on, children of God, be who you are.
Hey, how's everybody doing today? Right on, man. I'm so happy that you are here. I was just thinking, praising God as I was sitting there for a couple things. First of all, that you are here today. Honestly, I look around the room. I love walking in a little bit, everybody sitting down, and I get to see everybody and give a hug. If I walk past you and didn't give you a hug, it wasn't because I don't like it. It's just because I was focused on something else. I'll give every one of you guys a hug. I'm so grateful that each of you are here today. Man, I can speak. So the second thing I'm excited about is, Misha, thank you for playing the drums. Doing an awesome job. For a couple reasons. One, great to have drums. And for someone who is rhythmically challenged, shall we say, where normally I can't sing and clap at the same time, I had a beat to be like, all right, got to listen to that and sing the words. So thank you, all right? And then last, it's cool this weekend. I get to wear a flannel shirt, all right? So good stuff. Good weekend, right? Oh, my goodness. Dave, it was awesome. Thank you for sharing your heart and just hearing. We're excited about being a part of the 25,000 meals delivered. And so, we're going to talk more about that in a minute. I'll share in a minute. But I just want to encourage you, something that's very close to Heart at Radius. If you're at the beginning, Amanda said, we are people on mission, moving out in ever-widening circles to change our world. We really believe that the mission of the church is to move out and make a difference, to be tangible in that, to be physical in that, to find ways to show love in tangible ways. And so great ways we do it is inviting you guys to come help pack the meals next Sunday night, as well as sign up to go deliver the meals that Monday. Many of you guys have work. Maybe you can move your schedule around. We have 3 shifts, and I'm going to tell you right now, our 9 to noon, Amanda's going to talk about, maybe already talked about it. You already talked about it. Oh, we did our highlights. I missed that part, yeah. So 9 to noon, we need some people. So if you haven't signed up, come help sign up. It'll be a great opportunity. We are in our series, Hebrews chapter 12. We're taking a passage of the Bible and kind of moving through it over these weeks. And I love Hebrews. The book of Hebrews was written to Jewish believers. That's kind of, you get the title, Hebrews, the Jewish believers, people who had left Judaism and had chosen to follow Jesus. And this book was written about 25 years after Jesus has risen from the dead and gone back to heaven. And so their faith is being tested. They're being persecuted. They're really struggling. We're really choosing to believe and follow Jesus. And they're really tempted to give up. And so the writer, who most people believe was Paul, but not for sure, wrote the book of Hebrews to really encourage them, to tell them not to give up. One of his themes throughout the book of Hebrews, maybe encourage you on your own when you go home this week to start reading the book of Hebrews. There's a current theme throughout the whole book of Hebrews that Jesus is better than. And it lists everything. Better than angels, better than this, better than religion. Jesus is better than. That's kind of the theme of Hebrews. Hebrews chapter 12, I always liked. And I like it because Hebrews chapter 12 really is encouraging them not to give up, to press forward, and to really embrace what it means to be a child of God. They have been known as, the Israelites have been known as the children of God. They had a title. But they really understand and embrace what that really meant as an identity was what this writer was talking about. We've been looking at that over the last couple of weeks. The first week we talked about that we need to embrace the race. A passage that Hebrews chapter 12, 1 and 2, that if you're somewhat involved in church growing up, maybe you've heard this passage, lay aside each weight and sin that so easily besets you, keeping your eyes on Jesus and running the race that's set before you. And the idea is that we must embrace the race. And he's telling a story. He's linking it to the last chapter that lists like the most famous characters of the Bible that did amazing things for God, the ones that maybe as you grew up hearing about, or maybe even you weren't involved in church, you heard who David was and some of these high kind of important people who were, and if you look at their lives, they were struggling just as much as you and me, but they had faith. And with faith, they accomplished great things. They were not great people. That's a good thing to know. This fall of faith chapter, lastly, these people were broken, messed up people. Like just David, right? He cheated on his wife with another person, and then he had the dude killed. I mean, come on. He's not the guy we would look up and say, that's the model of who I should be like. But what the chapter is really looking at is not how great the person is, but what they put a faith in a great God. And that faith has power to move. And he encourages these believers, just as he's encouraging you and me, that we have a faith, a race to run. That your life is more than just yours. There's something great that's been going on, that's been passed down from generation upon generation. I was talking to Scott right before the message, and Scott and Danita, congratulations, got married last Sunday. Woohoo! And welcome back, had a honeymoon and came to church this Sunday. It's so cool. And one thing he said, he got this box from, I think it was parents, and he said a box of books, and he looked at it, and it was the Bibles from his great-grandparents, his grandparents, and his parents. Began to open up and see when they were married and learn about them and learn about, he said his grandfather had written stuff in Hebrew and translated it, and he didn't realize. I mean, talk about passing on the faith, that we have all received our faith from someone, that God's spoken through someone to receive it. And our race is a relay as we receive it. We're destined, we're purposed for something great. We're part of a race to hand it moving forward to the next generation, to the people around us. He begins this series by saying, look, you have something that matters. Your life is more than just your problems and your struggles. You are a part of something big and epic, and you have something that's passing forward in faith. And then it goes in the next, last week we talked about not only embrace the race, but we must embrace discipline. All right. So embrace the race was woohoo. I'd like to hear that message again. Embrace discipline, right? I don't know if that's the one I would love to hear, but it coincides so much, because in the embracing the race, it says we must lay aside each sin and weight that so easily besets us, and setting our eyes on Jesus, run the race is set before us. In order to run races, we must train. And God, as our Father, makes it very clear that if you are my child, I will discipline you. And discipline we looked at was twofold. It was, hey, when you mess up, you step out, I will correct you in order to bring you back so you can run the race with all the effort you need to run, to lay aside the sin that so easily trips you up. But we also saw that in the Greek, the word it meant train up a child. And so God, as our Father, is training us. And if you are his child, he's not here to the lightning bolt God with a gray beard and like ready just to strike you down every time you step out of line. He is a Father who loves you and wants you to run the race well. This is where we're at. We follow the next two verses today. We're going to look at it in verses 14 and 15. And it coincides right with everything that's happening, as we talked about before. And today it says we must embrace together. Together. These two verses are set right in the middle of this passage for a very important reason. There's a core value at Reyes that says, together we accomplish more. We believe that's one of our core values that we lean into, that we believe that together we can do more, together we are better. I.e., this Thanksgiving drive, you and me could go out. You could go out yourself and buy a couple Thanksgiving meals and give it, but together we can do 300. Let me just give you a little hint. My goal, and I can't wait to get there, is we're doing 1,000 meals. 1,000 meals is my goal. When we get to 1,000 meals, then we'll think our next goal. But look, I'm not content. There are plenty of families in our community that need a meal for Thanksgiving. And as David said, there's plenty of people in our world that need to see a church that really truly cares for them and loves them in tangible ways, in order that we can help them see that God loves them, right? And so 1,000 meals are our goal. That's our big one, all right? It's going to take a lot from all of us. Together we can accomplish that. I can never do that on my own. Together we can do more. Here's the truth. If is not if, but since we are called to run the race, something beyond our retirement, something beyond our everyday struggles, that we are called to something great, to take the faith and pass it forward, then we cannot do it on our own. We cannot do it in isolation. We were not created for that. We were not created to be in a relationship with God on our own. Do you know that? I mean, it's great. As Dave said, went out to the beach and you can worship God. But God created us in the context of relationships. Let me give you a perfect illustration. When he created Adam in the beginning, perfect world, no struggles. Adam was good looking. I mean, everything. He had no problems in life. Had no social media at the time. It was really great. I didn't know who didn't like him, all right? And life was perfect. And yet God looked at Adam and said, it is not good for him to be alone. He was imperfect. He could hang out with God every day and talk to him face to face. And he said, because human beings were created to be in community together. Now, that word community is thrown a lot in church, right? You got to be in community. You got to be in community. And we talk about come to church, but really embracing together is much deeper than sitting on a Sunday morning beside someone and shaking their hand. And let me give you a little context why we do the awkward shake-up, because we want to create opportunity for connection, right? If you're new here and you're like, I hated that was the worst part of the whole day. We understand that, but we really believe that we want you to connect. But it's more than just sitting beside somebody in a seat. It's more than, we want you to go to a small group and get connected, and I think that gets closer to it. When you actually sit with somebody in a small group of people and you get to share your real authentic self and people hear you, and there's things that people are going to say. There's a dynamic of people, but there's something special about it. But God, through the writer here, we are called to run the race, a race that is great. We're embracing that, and it is disciplining. The Lord's training us, but it cannot be done alone. We must embrace together. And he says it's this. Look at verse 14. He begins to talk. He says in verse 14, he starts to write. He says, work at living in peace with everyone. Work at living a holy life, for those who are not holy will not see the Lord. Work at living at peace with everyone. Jesus, when he preached his very first message, like he came on the scene, and he's talking about the Beatitudes, and it's his first message. He's kind of on a hillside, and people are kind of hear who this guy is and seeing him do some cool stuff, and what's this Jesus character about? And Jesus starts off, blessed is this, and happy are this, and this is what it means. I want to define to you what it means to be a follower of Jesus. In Matthew, in this passage of 5, verse 9, it says this, God blesses those who work for peace, for they will be called the children of God. He makes it very clear, look, if you are my child, if you're going to embrace what it means to be a child of God, you must embrace being, in my old translation growing up, a peacemaker, pursuing peace. This is what we're called to do. In our world, it's easy to pursue conflict. And some of us don't like pursuing conflict. We try to avoid it, right? But some of us like to cause divisions. And I grew up in church, and I saw so many divisions in church. And this passage is in particular is talking about people who are of the body of believers, that we must pursue peace with all of them. Jesus said that's what it looks like. What does that mean? To work at is what it's in the Greek when it says work at living with peace. The actual Greek word for work at is actually pursue. It is to chase after with a passion and an earnest to say, I need to pursue peace. And peace in this definition in Greek is actually carries the idea of wholeness or completeness. In this context, it's not a feeling. Not talking about a feeling of peace. He's talking about the idea that we are meant to pursue completeness, being together, knitted together as believers. Because you've got a race to run. You've got a calling on your life. You've got a struggle to move through. You must be knit together. You've got to pursue connection and togetherness. And it's so true. I was talking to somebody earlier, right? Isolation is the enemy of that. See, we isolate. When we are overwhelmed and we get bombarded and we get attacked, we seek isolation. And isolation is the tool of the enemy. Man, I've seen in my life, being a pastor and even being a youth pastor, I saw some people, they start to struggle. The very first thing they do that we do is we step away from the community of people who really care for us. And we have plenty of ideas why, right? But the very fact of the matter, isolation is a tool. The enemy's voice is louder there because you're in your head more when you're isolated. Am I with me? Right? Temptation for me is stronger when I'm alone, when I'm isolated. And my impact for good is lessened when I'm isolated. It's a tool. He wants you to stay separate. He seeks to divide. But God says, look, you as a follower, you are called to, not option, you are called to work hard at pursuing peace, to pursuing unity. And let me tell you a little side note there. Isolation and solitude are two separate things, right? Superman had his fortress of, anybody comic book here? Solitude. He chose to get away for moments to connect in order to move back out. This was purposefully getting aside. It doesn't mean I got to be around people all the time. No, there's moments, moms, dads, grandparents, there's moments you need to be away, and that's good. Seek times of solitude, but make it purposeful. Because if you don't seek times of solitude, you will find yourself seeking isolation, right? If we had to be honest in here, many of you guys are looking for isolation right now. right? You're like, I just need to shut everything out. And you think, if I can just shut it all out, then I can get through it and I'll be stronger in the end. The fact of the matter is such a lie. Avoiding it, putting your head in the sand, just getting away in a corner and just like, I don't want to deal with people ever again, is dangerous. If you're going to run the race, you must be together. I got to pause for a moment because this shirt is great outside, but I'm about ready to sweat inside, all right? Anybody else warm in here? And what's so funny is I was like, it's so warm in here. I looked at the temperature, like 70 degrees. I'm like, I'm just now used to the outside temperature of 65 degrees, all right? So front row, I'm sorry. All right, I'm going to say that right now. All right. Whew. Truth is, here's the truth. Here's the hard part about it, guys. This is where we all struggle. It takes work to connect. Doesn't it? When the writer says, it's understood you are meant, are encouraged, need to pursue relationship, connection. It's up to you. I don't feel connected. I don't feel like anybody cares. Remember, we're not talking about feeling. We're talking about real connection. And it is up to us to pursue that with others. So many times what I do is I don't feel it, and I start to feel bad at what's wrong with me, and why do they not pay attention to me, and why am I isolated, and why then they care about everybody else but me, and I start feeling alone. I feel so alone. I don't feel connected. And God says, look, here's what you need to do. It's up to you. Go pursue connection. Are you taking every opportunity to connect with the people around you? This is vital for you to live the life that God's called you to live. Now you say, but Blake, there are people that they don't want it. I try it and they're not want it, and I get so frustrated and I try to control it. Here's the thing: here's what we got to live. We got to live with peace with them, or we got to be able to live with peace without them. What that means is we seek to pursue peace and connection with everybody that's in our circles, and if as much as we can, but if we cannot, then we give that to God. See, peace without them, when we don't have peace without them, it turns into anger, resentment, and bitterness. I can't control this. I can't get this right. I can't fix this situation, and I want them to be at peace with me, and they're not wanting any part of it. We get angry and we get frustrated. Here's what we must do. We must say, I'm at peace with God, I'm at peace with them, and I trust them. That's why the very next part of the passage says, not only do you pursue peace with others, but pursue your own holiness. The word holiness, as looking up, is not the same word as perfect. It actually means sanctification. It's a unique word for holiness, sanctification, which is a long word that means basically process of becoming more like Jesus. Sanctification. God is we accept Christ, and our journey from the moment of salvation to the moment of die is God training us and disciplining us and making us more like Him. That helps. Part of our process of becoming more like Him is learning to deal with the people who do not want peace and you can't reconcile with. Not only that, but community is part of our spiritual process. Seek to live at peace with people. Pursue holiness. In fact, I would say this, that we must engage in community in order to really see our spiritual life grow. 1 Thessalonians 5:11 says this. So we have a screen on the screen. It says this. So encourage each other and build each up as just as you're already doing. Paul, who was writing to the Thessalonians, saying, look, your job, the church, is meant to build each other up. It says, in another verse that Paul says, don't forsake the assembling of yourselves together because you're a bad Christian if you don't. No, don't forsake the assembling of yourselves together because you are called to encourage each other. People need your encouragement. The church was not meant to be a place to sit. It was a place to engage and encourage and walk beside others in their journey. And our spiritual journey is dependent on this. I got a quote I want to give you this. This is so true. You have been placed on this earth in the context of community because it is our interaction with others that promote our spiritual growth and helps develop our character. So true. I want to tell you something. Your faith in isolation will be weak because it's not tested by the people around you. We must engage with others. It is uncomfortable and times awkward, but here's the truth. In the church context, we should be a people that's seeking to be connected with others, not trying to do it by ourselves. He keeps going forward, and I really need to get done because I think I'm going to have a heat stroke up here, all right? So you're going to be happy. We're going to get done quick, this last verse 15. You ready? We're going. All right. 15 says this. Look out after each other so that no one fails to receive the grace of God. Look after each other so that no one of you fails to receive the grace of God. I was looking at some study on that, and the word fails is the Greek in the picture of someone falling behind in a long journey. That as we're on this journey, this race running ahead, that as people go, and I've seen it from the day one of my faith, as I've watched people who were passionate for Jesus, and they're running the race, and then you kind of turn and they're not there. Have you experienced that in your life? People you say we're excited about Jesus, and then you were like, yeah, we're walking beside you, and all of a sudden you look and they're lagging back, and there's something heavy weighing them down. Maybe it's sin, maybe it's a weight, maybe it's what am I doing? Am I trying to beat?
I feel like you're going to hit Eli.
Have I hit you, Eli?
No.
Have you ducked?
No, we're debating giving you some water.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Oh my goodness. All right. I'll go over here. I can hit you, Dave. All right. That we are meant to, as we run this race, there are people that we've got to be proactively looking for the ones that are falling behind. And I get it. Here's what I say, and here's what you may say. I got my own race to run. Right? I got my own stuff. But the power of this is if you really want to run the race well, you got to be actively as a lifeguard looking for the people who are struggling. It doesn't mean you have to fix the problems. You just need to notice them. Right? I get so busy. We talked about last week, the enemy's job is to keep us busy and keep noise in our life, to keep us self-focused. But the beauty and the power of the faith is when I look beyond myself and I look to others and I look for the ones who are struggling. I notice them. I walk with them. Here's what we don't do. Here's what Christians are really good at that's not really good. We love dropping truth bombs. See the problem? Let me have it fix it for you. Bam, all right, I'll see when you get caught up, all right? No. We are meant to walk beside them, love them, walk with them, and listen to me, build the equity and a relationship with them so you can speak the truth they need to hear. I believe to the core of my being that truth without love is not effective, and truth not in the context of relationship falls short. We all know that. Nobody's going to tell us how to raise our kids. No one that we don't know is going to tell us how to run your life. Unless you have a relationship, unless you built trust to say, you know what, I value what they speak in their life because they care for me, because they're walking with me. They're not judging me. They're beside me. And when I have the equity, we can speak the truth that they may not see into their life, but only after we built the equity into it. But here it is. Man, what would the church be like if we really lived this way? If we said we're not just going to show up on a Sunday morning, check our list, do our song, and go home, that we understood that everyone around us is connected to us and that we run the race, but this race is not just my race to run, that we're all running this race together. And I don't win if I cross the line, but I win when all the people with me cross the line. There's a great race, it's a mountain bike race in South Africa that happens every year. It's kind of the Tour de France of mountain biking. And it's a 435-mile mountain bike ride. It takes 8 days to complete. The unique part of this race is, it's a 2-team race, that every leg of the race is a day that they only can finish when both people cross the finish line. By themselves, if one gets ahead, it doesn't count. It's when both cross the finish line. What's powerful about this, on one of the legs in 2018, this team was running and the guy's tire collapsed. So him and his partner kind of stopped and didn't realize they were going to have to walk the bike. Another team who was going to pass them stopped and said, hey, why don't you who bike fell, why don't you get onto my bike, you sit on the seat and I will stand and pedal the last 8 miles of the race. And then his teammate took the bike who was collapsed, he grabbed it and he took the bike as he rode his bike to the finish line. And it said in this article I read, it says, we conquer as one. When we stop realizing that our race is not a competition against the next Christian or the next church or the next person around us, that our faith is meant to be run as a race, as a relay passed on from the great ones ahead of us and passed forward to the ones before us. But we must do it together, right? We cannot be alone. And we need to look for the ones that are struggling and not be so, I'm too busy and I got too much of my own problems, but to realize that I win when they win. That when they are not falling behind, it doesn't matter if I slow down so I can help them accomplish it. This is what the writer of Hebrews is saying, what it means to be a child of God. Church, do we live this way? Do you live this way? What if your next spiritual breakthrough is found in those around you? I'm going to say that one more time. So you're like, I want a word from God. I want to see God. In fact, it says those who are not holy will not see God. Those who are not in the process of becoming more spiritual. And the process of becoming more spiritual is walking with those beside you and helping them in their journey. What if your next spiritual breakthrough is not going to be found in isolation, but going to be found in the people around you? How would you look at the person beside you, realizing they are the key for helping me see who God really is? Do we live that way? Don't you think the world would be so much more in awe of a church that really lived in community? Now, I'm not talking about going out and picking apples together, being a commune, all right? That may be your thing. That's cool, but that's a little weird to me, all right? I'm talking about living life together and saying, you know what? I notice you. You are important to me. And when you're struggling, I'm not here to put you down. I'm not here to leave you behind. I'm here. How can I help walk beside you? Maybe it's in silence. Maybe it's going and taking them out to a meal, but being aware that all of us, and here's the fact of the matter, all of us have struggled and fallen behind at a time, haven't we? Let us run. And we embrace together. The last word is bitterness. He changes, he shifts in mid-thought. Don't let bitterness, the root, grow up because it will corrupt you. The number one thing that will divide togetherness is bitterness. Bitterness is, in my life, when someone I think hurts me or really hurts me and I hang on to it. I don't let it go. I don't forgive them. And bitterness becomes something that is a poison. It's like that milk that expired 2 weeks ago and you're hanging on to it. It's bitter. In our lives, when we hang on to unforgiveness, it will corrupt us. It will isolate us, and it will separate us from community. The Bible says, do not let the poison root of bitterness grow up in you. Nelson Mandela said this. He was in prison for 27 years. Mixed things about his life and all that, but one thing I saw, he was a man that pursued peace and helped end apartheid and brought a nation together. He was in 27 years. When he got out, he said this, as I walk out the door towards freedom, I knew that if I did not leave all anger, hatred, and bitterness behind, that I would still be in prison. Some of us today yearn for togetherness. All of us are called to it. But let us take a time to look in the garden of our life and see if there's bitterness, because bitterness will isolate you, it'll imprison you, and it'll push the people you care away from you. Truth? Hey, children of God, let's embrace truly together. Let's pray. Lord Jesus, thank you for this day. God, I pray as we look to these two verses, we look in the middle of this passage about who you are, God, about what you call us to be. God, help us to embrace together. Help us not to just know it's about coming and coming to church and just checking a mark, but God, help us not to think that we can do it on our own. Help us to open ourselves to relationship. Help us actually to pursue relationship with others around us, God. God, we need your help. Some of us do not have relationship with others because of the bitterness that's strangling our own soul today. God, today may we take an axe to the bitterness root that is strangling our lives. May we trust you and give you the hurt and pain so that we can truly step into the unity of community and embrace together. I pray this in Jesus' name.